They said it would be swift, painless, humane. But what if every peaceful execution is hiding a brutal truth? In the dead of night, behind sterile curtains and locked prison gates, the state administers death not in the shadows, but beneath the blinding glare of fluorescent lights. What the public sees is calm. What the condemned feel is a different story. They come from every background, some guilty beyond doubt, others still protesting innocence. But in the final moments, they share one thing: a date with system cloaked in medical theater, masks, gloves, a gurney, and a needle. Joe Nathan James Jr. was once just another face in Alabama system, convicted of a brutal crime, sentenced to die. But what happened on the day of his execution would shake even hardened attorneys. 3 hours. Multiple failed for attempts. An autopsy later revealed his wrist bruised, his knuckles pierced, and a jagged incision deep into his arm. The state said nothing out of the ordinary, and they were right for Alabama. On paper, lethal injection sounds serene, but behind that curtain, chaos reigns. August 2022. The death chamber at Holman Correctional Facility is eerily silent. Witnesses are ushered in. Joe Nathan James Jr. lies still, but something is off. Hours have passed since he was led into the room. The drugs finally flow, but he doesn't respond. An autopsy later reveals a horror. The real damage had already been done, and James isn't alone. Across the country, executions are failing, not just morally, but medically. When Charles Brooks was executed by lethal injection in Texas in 1982, it was hailed as progress, a clean death, a humane state. The nation watched, reassured by the quiet procedure. For decades, it was a default method, silent, sterile, acceptable. But the numbers started to tell a darker story. Of the 1,377 lethal injections since, over 7% were botched. In 2022 alone, 37% of all executions failed in some way. This wasn't a flaw in the system. It was the system, the medical gurney, the swabbing of arms, the scrubs and gloves, all designed to assure the public this was careful, professional, but it was stagecraft, a performance. States were choosing drug combinations through internet searches. Prisons were sourcing drugs in secrecy, often from questionable suppliers. The people administering them, not trained doctors, but correctional officers with minimal medical background. Despite the outward calm, the condemned were often awake, aware, and in pain. Evidence from over 200 autopsies showed pulmonary edema in 84%, lungs filled with fluid, drowning the victim from the inside out. But the audience never saw that. The curtains stayed drawn. November 2022. 3 botched executions in 48 hours, Alabama, Texas, Arizona. In Arizona, Clarence Dixon's 4 lines failed. After 25 minutes, they sliced into his groin for a cut down, a bloody, last resort attempt. In Texas, Stephen Barbie suffered due to medical complications. And in Alabama, Kenneth Smith was stuck with needles until the execution was finally called off. Behind every case, secrecy, incompetence, and suffering. And when states were forced to answer for it, the answers were chilling. Alabama's statement: nothing unusual occurred. They called it the most botched execution in U.S. history. Joe Nathan James. 3 hours, multiple punctures, bruises, a gaping incision. But this wasn't an isolated incident. Richard Glossop in Oklahoma, given the wrong drug. Charles Warner, executed with unauthorized chemicals. Clayton Lockett woke up mid-execution, gasping and writhing. Each time, the illusion unraveled a little more. Dr. Joel Zivit described plainly, it's a circus of suffering, one where inmates are waterboarded with chemicals, masked only by a silent room and the word humane. Today, some governors have paused executions. Others continue. Business as usual. States like Alabama have turned to nitrogen gas. But Kenneth Smith's second execution attempt with gas was no better. Witnesses described it as a train wreck. And still, the public sees only the surface. Calm, the sterile. Karina Barrett Lane calls it theater, not because the deaths aren't real, but because the pain is hidden behind curtains, protocols, and the illusion of mercy. Lethal injection not working well is how lethal injection works.